Chapter 7. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was lying in bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. Daniel said,
In my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the 4 winds of heaven churning up the great sea. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told,
Get up and eat your fill of flesh.
After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard. And on its back it had 4 wings, like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. He gave me this explanation.
The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom.
Chapter 13. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked,
Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. The inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction.
Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace, but the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky. Wherever they live, he has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. Yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united, any more than iron mixes with clay. In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of a mountain, but not by human hands, a rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy.
Chapter 17. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me,
Come! I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute, who sits by many waters. With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries.
Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names, and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things, and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes, and of the abominations of the earth.
The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth.
For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries.
Then I heard another voice from heaven say,
Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. For her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Pour her a double portion from her own cup. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, I sit enthroned as queen. I am not a widow. I will never mourn. Therefore, in one day, her plagues will overtake her. Death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her. When the kings of the earth, who committed adultery with her, and shared her luxury, see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry, Woe! Woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon! In 1 hour your doom has come. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their cargoes anymore.
Two Frenchmen, Jean Monnet and the French Foreign Minister from 1948 to 1953, Robert Schuman, are seen as the early architects of European integration.
In 1951, the first union was formed between 6 countries: Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Italy, France, and West Germany.
And then in one step, by one agreement, all were brought together under one community, the European community of coal and steel. The dream of Francis Schumann turned into reality.
The dragon has existed wherever Chinese culture existed, and the Chinese eventually began calling themselves the descendants of the dragon.
The Vatican City, as it's not a democracy but has a ruling monarchy, the UN doesn't agree, and therefore makes the Vatican City not part of the UN.
The United Nations is the world's largest organization for the purposes of having states sit in a room together and talk to one another about political issues that are going on in the world today. You can see the flag up there on the top, and then the bottom is a picture of the building. This is the United Nations headquarters. It's in New York, so anyone who says to you that New York is the capital of the world, they're not entirely lying to you, because the United Nations building is actually right there. Like, most of the research is going to be on the United Nations Security Council, which we abbreviate the UNSC, as well as the General Assembly. What's the General Assembly? Let's start off with that. Well, that's the group that consists of everyone. So if you're a country in the world, basically you're in the General Assembly and you're sitting there and you talk to one another and you can vote on resolutions. So that's why we are interested in the General Assembly votes. But there's a big but there, that the General Assembly votes are mostly non-binding. So these votes that they have in the General Assembly don't really do anything. Everything has to go through the Security Council, essentially. This is where the action is at. If you're an important resolution, if you actually want to do something in the United Nations, then the United Nations Security Council has to approve it. Now, let's talk about the membership within the Security Council. There are 5 permanent members: the United States, Russia, China, France, and the United Kingdom. What do these states have in common? Well, they're the winners of World War II. There are also 10 non-permanent members. Each of these members is selected by region for 2-year terms. So 5 of these countries will be serving until the end of 2013, and then 5 new ones will take their place for the next 2 years. And then the other 5 will be serving for the next 2 years, from 2013 up until the end of 2014, and then they'll be cycled out for 5 new members, and so forth. So what do these members do? Well, when they get a resolution sent to them, in order to pass that resolution, you need to have 9 affirmative votes. So 9 out of 15. You need a supermajority, or 60% of the guys on the Security Council, to vote for the resolution for it to pass. The 5 permanent members, though, all have veto power. So in addition to having the 5 affirmative votes, you need to make sure that all 5 of the permanent members, the United States, Russia, China, France, and the United Kingdom, don't vote no for your bill. So, for example, the votes could be 14-1 on a resolution, and that resolution would still fail if the United States is that one guy voting against it, because the United States is a permanent member